Hey guys, it's Beth. Today I'll be using some craft wood from Dollar Tree in this project. I took 4 pieces of craft wood from Dollar Tree. This piece is 12 inches. It's one of the flat pieces. I wood glued and hot glued the ends and attached it to 2 12-inch pieces of chunky wood from Dollar Tree. And then I took wood glue again and hot glue, put it on the top of the chunky wood on the opposite side of the piece I already glued, and then put down another flat piece of 12-inch wood from Dollar Tree. So we're making a little stand. Next, I am making a swinging bench. This will be the seat. I took this piece of wood from Dollar Tree and some super jumbo craft sticks, held the craft sticks up against the bottom of the wood and measured it, and then cut down some pieces. You'll need 4 super jumbo craft sticks cut in half. Once I have them all set up on there, I wood glue and hot glue them down. Next, I'll be making the back of the bench. I line up 7 super jumbo craft sticks together and then cut down 2 more pieces and hot glue and wood glue them to the back. And I taped it down just to make sure it stayed in place while I glued those pieces down. Next, I am just using my square to get a straight line to trim up the bottom of it, using Fisker shears to cut those pieces off. Then I sand that piece. And then for the top, I wanted it rounded. So I marked where I wanted the top of it to be and just used a round hanger to get my line. And then again, using Fisker shears to cut that. This was a little harder to cut just since I glued the craft stick right to where I was cutting on the back. And then I take some of the tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree and glue 2 of them together end to end. And I make 2 sets of those, and then I have 2 just single pieces, so 6 all together. I take the bench seat that I made and 2 tumbling tower blocks and paint those with Plaster chalk paint with 2 coats. Next, I take my stand I made and use gel stain in the color walnut. I brush it on the entire stand and use a baby wipe to blend it in and remove any excess. Then I also put some of the gel stain on a baby wipe and wipe that on the 2 tumbling tower block sets that are glued together. Next, I'll be gluing my bench together. I take Gorilla Grip glue and hot glue, put some of that on the back of the rectangle wood piece that I glued the craft sticks to, and then place that down on the bottom of the back of the bench. And then I take this single white tumbling blocks, put some Gorilla Grip glue on the front side of that seat part, and then I tape it down so I can let that dry. I do the same thing on the other side. Once I have those both on there, I just add some extra masking tape to make sure that they stay in place while they dry. And I'm gluing the arms of the seat on. I put Gorilla Grip glue on the top of that white piece and one end of the piece that's stained. And I just tape that into place with the masking tape. The end of the tumbling blocks glue to the front of the seat right there. And I just tape it all around just to make sure it stays into place. And then I do the same thing to the other side, and I let that dry overnight. And then once it's all dry, I take these little hooks and screw 2 of them in to either side of the seat. And then I take my stand, and on the inside of the pieces of flat wood, I mark off about an inch from the edge, and then just make sure they're centered, and then screw in 2 more of those hooks. Next, I am attaching the swing to the hooks on the stand. I just laid it down and set 2 of the Dollar Tree cubes underneath just to get it into place where I want it to stay, where it's going to hang from. I take some twine and I tie a piece of it to one of the hooks on the seat, loop it through the hook on the stand, and then just make sure it is nice and straight. Make another loop at the end of that twine and hook it to the other hook on the seat. And then I do the same thing on the other side. And then I just, before I trim up the pieces, make sure it's nice and straight. And then trim up the excess twine. And that is it. I think it turned out so adorable. Thank you guys so much for watching. I used 2 of these picket hangers from Dollar Tree, one of Dollar Tree's little signs, as well as 12 tumbling tower blocks. Some jumbo craft sticks, those were from Walmart, as well as some of these stir stick type sticks, also from Walmart. Cottage white chalk paint, antique wax, Gorilla Glue, and hot glue. I started by gluing the tumbling tower blocks together with some Gorilla Glue, and I made sets of 2, and I needed 6 sets, so 12 tumbling tower blocks altogether, and I just set those aside to dry. Next, I took the picket hangers and removed the hangers and the staples from those, and they're on the front, so I'm working with the back of them, and use Gorilla Glue and hot glue and put the stir stick type craft sticks across the little pieces, connecting them on the back. And once those 2 were connected, I took the Cottage white chalk paint and painted that entire thing front and back. And I did 2 coats on that. And then I took this little sign from Dollar Tree and painted that with the same white paint. And I did all the sides and a little bit on the top. I did not cover the writing that's on the top because that will be covered. I did remove the lettering, but I didn't really need to because it will be covered. So I just painted the sides and a little bit of the top and then the entire bottom part of the sign. So everything but the very front of that sign. And I did 2 coats of paint on this as well. And I took 4 of the sets of tumbling blocks and painted those with the same white chalk paint and did 2 coats on those too. And I had let these dry for about half an hour before I work with them. Next, I took the jumbo craft sticks that I got from Walmart, and I just held one of them up to the top of the sign and flipped it around and just marked off where I needed to cut them. Double check to make sure that it fit, and then just use that one as my guide to mark the rest of the craft sticks. And I ended up needing 11 of them, and just cut them all down to that same size where those marks were. And then after I do this, I always like to hold them up together to see if any of them need to be trimmed down a little bit. and just trimmed them down with the Fisker shears, and then gave them all a quick sanding. Next, I just took all the craft sticks and placed them on the front of the sign, just to make sure that they were all set in place and lined up properly before I glued them down. And then I just made sure that they all looked nicer, the ones that were on the front. And if there were any, that were a little crooked, put those in the back. And then I just started by gluing down the end pieces, just to make sure that the center ones would fit properly and they didn't move around while I'm trying to glue them. And when I'm gluing them down, I'm making sure that on one side, which would be the back, that all of the craft sticks are flush with the back of the sign. And then on the front, they'll be hanging over just a little bit. And then on the front, where they are hanging over a little bit, I just gave them another quick sanding. And then on the little part that has paint left over on the sides, I just put some painter's tape down and then took Waverly antique wax and brushed it on the little craft sticks, and then used a baby wipe to blend that all in. Then made sure to carefully get the little pieces on the front. And then I took the other two sets of tumbling blocks and brushed antique wax on those as well, covering them entirely and just blending it all in with a wipe. The little picket pieces and held them up to the back and marked off where I wanted it to go, put some hot glue on the bottom of each of those, and then glued it in between those markings I had made. That's what it looks like so far. And then to make sure I had it nice and level for the legs, I just put a couple of the wooden cubes from Dollar Tree underneath it. And then I took the white sets of tumbling blocks I had painted, and I just kind of marked where it touched the little bench, put some hot glue in between those marks, and then glued it on the side of the bench. And then the last thing I had to do was take the other sets of tumbling blocks that had the antique wax on them and just hot glued them to the sets of white tumbling blocks that are the legs. Just making sure that they are nice and lined up and look even. And that is it. I think it turned out so adorable. Thank you guys so much for watching.